This is Tribe Company Culture Academy, and we are in the last video of Course 1. Congratulations on making it all the way to the end of this course. Let's finish strong. This video is going to be about culture from day one, the startup founder's blueprint to success. It's probably really obvious from the benefits of an intentional company culture that this is something you want to give consideration toward as a founder, CEO, entrepreneur, or leader. And the best time to get intentional about your culture is at the beginning, as soon as possible. It may seem like something that you can put off and address further down the line when there are more people to manage, but the opportunity with setting up the foundation for culture early are getting into shared narratives, vocabulary, and behavior that level up to your company values. And you can get to do this with your first core group of people, and then anyone else who gets onboarded can integrate with something that's clear and established. You also get to have a consistent framework that helps you identify fit with those new candidates for new roles. Plus, attract the right people, repel the wrong people, and end up with fewer integration problems and better retention. You also can start working out the kinks. Culture is not a one and done exercise. It evolves over time and requires experimentation and feedback. Much better to start implementing this with a manageable size group than wait and try to start getting people on board when they already have habits. And now they need to adjust to a new flexibility around culture. At that point, you have to undergo a whole change management process and a learning curve, and it's doable, but it's easier to just start up front. As mentioned, there is a lot of research out there these days to help people understand how humans best operate at work. But for some reason, it hasn't become common knowledge. Amy Edmondson, the researcher who initially wrote the book on psychological safety and has been researching it since the 90s, says that more and more professionals, consultants, managers, physicians, nurses, engineers can be found talking about psychological safety, yet few may be aware of the full weight of supporting evidence that it matters. And few still may have stopped to reflect on what companies lose when psychological safety is missing. In the same way that you look to other companies to understand successful business models, we can study the impacts of culture both anecdotally and from a research-based perspective. So it has become somewhat easier to navigate how to develop a successful culture model if you're willing to take the time to do a ton of research into what the academics have to say and read the anecdotal culture models and stories that have become a bit more mainstream. It's easy to find books and articles about large companies sharing their culture models like Netflix, Google, Virgin, and more. Plus, we can also look at other types of organizations and their approach to leading groups of people outside of the corporate sphere. Interestingly, similar patterns emerge, demonstrating that humans can be somewhat consistent in their needs and outputs in group settings, generally, who are trying to achieve some sort of outcome together. So other than legal considerations, the workplace isn't that much different than other situations people gather together to achieve outcomes. Think of schools, the military, not-for-profits, sports teams. It's becoming easier to be informed about the ways to get the most out of people. Productivity, creativity, innovation, while treating them well, because that's what the research indicates. So what does all the research add up to? If you put it all together, like we have tried to sit down and do, at Tribe, we've taken on all this different information and come up with what we think is a comprehensive and relatively easy to use company culture framework. We think this encompasses the core components of what makes up an impactful culture model. It has three major themes: core, comms, and care. And each of these three themes also has three components that make up the full framework for a strong company culture model. In the core are values. This is core for obvious reasons, and it is possibly the most important of all of the company culture framework components. All the other pieces are framed around this one. Values will be the cornerstone of so many of the other decisions you make about culture. Leadership. What kind of people do you need in your senior leadership team? How will leaders at all levels manage teams and employees in both business and culture objectives? Psychological safety. I previously just quoted Amy Edmondson, who is a pioneer in this space. And from that quote, you can tell that there's a lot of impact psychological safety can have on your culture and therefore the outputs that the people who are working in your culture can have. Comms is the next big section, and it has to do with internal communication strategy. Feedback, an obvious one, right? But methods for giving and collecting feedback. Idea flow, which has to do with maximizing creativity and innovation and helping communication to flow between people and teams within your organization. Transparency, what information is available and to who. Care is the next section, and it's all about the human dynamics, decision making. Hierarchy and power structures make a huge difference in how much freedom and responsibility each individual has. Talent, a huge topic, but central to this component of culture are hiring, firing, compensation, and diversity. And lastly, belonging. This is a different word to use as a sort of umbrella term for a lot of things, like employee engagement, development, and retention. Hopefully, as a leader, you're kind of excited seeing this. It's okay if you feel a little intimidated too. It looks like there's a lot to unpack, and there is, which is why we're going to be here with you. But if it intuitively feels right to you and that you feel like this is making a lot of sense, you just maybe haven't considered all these different parts before or putting them together, you're probably a visionary leader who's ready to help evolve company culture to fit the challenges of the modern workplace. At Tribe, we're here to become a partner with you. And the rest of the community is also here in the Tribe Company Culture Academy to reinvent the workplace for today and the future. We've done some of the heavy lifting to read and research and develop this framework. We've simplified the concepts to help you easily understand each of these components of a great culture model. And we're not only going to look at them from a theoretical perspective, but give you lots of ways to actually make it practical and applicable and actionable. We want to help walk you through understanding how to make the decisions that define your culture in each of these areas in a way that starts your company culture off in the strongest way possible. So what's next? The other courses in Tribe Company Culture Academy will unpack each of the individual components in the framework. So you can decide on how to make a unique company culture for your business that is comprehensive and makes an impact for the people who work for you and for your business results. I'm excited for you to join me in course 2, which is going to be all about values.